Good morning or good afternoon, and thank you so much for joining us. My name is Morgan Higman, and I am the Climate Strategy Director for the Nature Conservancy in Florida. I'm joined today by my colleague, Amanda Thompson, and we are going to talk to you a little bit about the Nature Conservancy's climate initiatives in Florida. So just a little background on our organization. TNC was founded in 1951. We are among the world's largest environmental nonprofits. We work all around the world in 70 plus countries and every US state. And our mission is to conserve the lands and waters on which all life depends. Our organization is science-based, nonpartisan, and solution-oriented. Our Florida chapter is among the oldest in our organization. It was founded in 1961. We presently have more than 80 staff, and we work primarily remotely, but we have staff located all across the state. Our organization in Florida also has 4 centers for conservation initiatives, which are land preserves as well as education centers. And my colleague Amanda will be talking to you a little bit more about that part of our work. In Florida, our TNC staff focus on a variety of important environmental topics, including marine and freshwater conservation and quality, fisheries, agriculture, wildlife habitat, policy, and of course, climate action, which we want to talk to you a little bit about today. As background on our climate work, I want to talk to you a little bit about some of our work that we've done in recent past, and that is a legacy of climate adaptation work. So for the past 5 or so years, we've had a strong interest in enhancing coastal resilience and climate adaptation using nature-based solutions. And what that really means is thinking about how we can protect Florida's coastlines from king tides and sea level rise and increasingly severe weather events that we see affecting our coastlines. And what we did in this area was we developed some demonstration projects, planting mangroves and a variety of other sort of nature-based and native plant species to help mitigate coastal flooding in different parts across the state. These tangible projects were really useful in kind of serving as a proof of concept, as you will, and providing education to lawmakers about the significance of this opportunity for investment. As a result of our demonstration projects, we saw that state funding for this kind of work more than doubled. So if you look at the kind of teal colored slices on that pie chart in FY 21-22 or fiscal year 21-22, it more than doubled the next year. And some of that had to do with the importance of these demonstration projects that we developed in partnership with local governments and volunteers, and serving as education sites for lawmakers, both federal and state. And so we are really proud of the work that we've done in this space, enhancing coastal resilience and inspiring local governments to think about how they can continue this work. But in recent memory, we've kind of transitioned to this new imperative focused on emissions reduction, or what we're calling coordinated, equitable, and enduring climate mitigation. And so, of course, we can think about climate adaptation and climate mitigation being 2 sort of areas of work under this broader umbrella of climate action. But for the remaining part of our discussion, when I talk about climate action, I'm mostly going to be talking about mitigation and emissions reduction. So to kind of kick this discussion off, what I'd like to talk about before I get into our work is Florida's climate and energy landscape, or the context in which we find ourselves working. And I'm going to start with this sort of topic on the left, which is the challenges that we're up against. It may come as no surprise to you if you live in Florida that our state is among the most vulnerable to climate hazards of all states in the country. The tree down here, the picture that we see, is probably the result of one of our many seasonal storms. But trees falling is actually the #1 source of electricity outages in our state, which can create lots of challenges for quality of life for Floridians, but particularly those that might be vulnerable in the sense that they rely on electricity for, say, medical needs or other issues. Florida also has rapid growth and development. We have more than 1,000 people, or about 1,000 people a day coming to our state to make a home for themselves and make a livelihood for themselves. And that creates enormous growth pressures for our electricity generation, but also our land use and our water use and other environmental resources. And finally, we have a highly contested policy environment for both climate and energy policy. And that's significant because not having consistent state leadership in the last decade has really impacted the rate and trajectory of Florida's sort of climate path. So if we look at this center kind of column, we have conditions. And what's interesting is on the one hand, we have this contested policy environment, but on the other hand, we have among the highest solar deployment rates in the country. Florida, I think, had the most solar deployment in the first part of 2023 of all states. And we continue to have a high rate of electric vehicle adoption as well. Another important thing to note is we have very high residential electric demand relative to some other states that have more demand for electricity in areas like industry. And altogether, what that means is that for our state, we've seen a lot of rapid growth of utility scale solar farms like the one pictured below, which on the one hand is good for emissions reduction. On the other hand, it places a lot of stress on our already strained land use environment. And it also means that some of the benefits of solar, particularly those related to resilience, we don't see as much because we don't have the benefit of solar being placed where it's being used, primarily on rooftops of buildings. Instead, what we have is long transmission lines from more rural parts of our state to these urban centers, which means that we're not really improving the resilience of our energy environment, even though we're beginning to reduce emissions. And nonetheless, we have tremendous opportunities for climate action in Florida. And by climate action, I primarily mean transitions to renewable energy and electric vehicles as a starting place for reducing our emissions. Florida has very high solar irradiance or sunshine potential for solar energy. We are the sunshine state after all. We have a skilled and diverse population that is largely supportive of climate action. In some polling that TNC has done of Florida voters, we found that there is support for climate action on both sides of the aisle and across the state, particularly when we frame climate action in terms of resilience or economic opportunity. And so I think it's important to note that when we talk about climate action, emissions reduction is of course the goal, but sometimes the message to support that goal doesn't have to be about emissions. It can be about land conservation or resilience or economic development and job creation. Florida is a hub for finance and innovation that can support our emissions reduction goals and actually make our state a leader in this space. And we are benefited a lot by existing collaboration and motivation that I'll talk to you a little bit more about. So I want to talk to you about sort of the TNC theory of change for working on moving from opportunity to action in the near term. And that theory of change has kind of three major components that I'd like to talk about. We'll begin at the kind of top of this pyramid here on federal funding. The federal government passed two really important pieces of legislation in the last couple of years. The Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act and the Inflation Reduction Act provide unprecedented amounts of funding for climate action for state and local governments, for nonprofits, for industry, and for individuals. Unfortunately, our state is missing out on some of this funding because of state level officials and policymakers who have alternative priorities. And so one of our primary challenges at TNC is related to ensuring that the state benefits from this federal funding as much as possible. And I'm going to give you an example or two of what that looks like. But I think that this is the top of our pyramid for kind of two reasons. One, we have a three-pronged approach here, but also I think it cannot be overstated how significant this federal funding is and this leadership that we have, not in our state, but in our country for climate action, and the potential of this funding to benefit individuals and families, local governments and communities in our entire state is really a primary priority. And so drawing down that federal funding is incredibly important to us at TNC. The second area is tangible benefits. And I think that tangible benefits are really important because climate change as a topic is often kind of sciencey and abstract. It can feel very far away and like a problem for future generations, perhaps. And so tangible benefits are an important way for illustrating the near-term and personally meaningful opportunities associated with climate action. And so here we have a picture of agrivoltaics or solar combined with farming. It's an interesting way to make use of some of the land that is under solar panels that can provide environmental benefits. But this is just one example of a tangible benefit. We could also think about the resilience benefits associated with solar on rooftops during hurricanes, for example, or the jobs created by both existing technologies and new technologies that we will need to support climate action. And the final sort of piece of our pyramid here is key constituencies. And what that means to me is cultivating a diverse and motivated group of different kinds of interests that all collectively support climate action. And that can be individuals in different communities. It can be industry groups, nonprofits, school children. We need kind of all hands on deck to support climate action in our state. So we'll talk a little bit about that work as well. So I want to talk to you about two projects that kind of demonstrate this three-pronged approach that we're taking. And the first is a project for the Miccosukee Tribe of Indians of Florida to develop a resilient solar microgrid for their community. If you look at this sort of far left part of our slide, you can see that the tribe is located in sort of the center of South Florida. It's a low-lying community along the Florida Everglades in a very rural part of our state. And this community is regularly affected by power outages, both sort of long duration outages that are a result of storms or hurricanes that can leave them without power for days, but also what we call brownouts, or sort of temporary power surges and outages that can affect things like internet and microwaves and televisions and smaller devices that nonetheless have a significant impact on daily life. Electricity outages also affect the community's water treatment plant and school and sort of community infrastructure more generally. So TNC has partnered with the tribe to apply for a $5 million federal grant that is available under the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act to support solar adoption among rural communities. And this project is particularly significant to the tribe because the Miccosukee tribe presently has no community-owned solar infrastructure. So this is a novel investment for the community that will have kind of tangible benefits, particularly related to resilience as well as emissions reduction. But to complement those benefits, we're also working with the tribe to develop opportunities for K-12 education associated with this new infrastructure, which will be located right along their school. And we're also working to support a workforce development program in partnership with Florida International University, or FIU, to ensure that the tribe doesn't just benefit from having this new technology on their site with the solar and the backup power, but they can also benefit from jobs, and hopefully we can make champions of some of the young people in this community to support additional projects like this. We also hope that this project will serve as a model for climate resilience in other parts of the state and encourage microgrid deployment more broadly, or this combination of solar and batteries for backup power. So our role in this project has been threefold. One is that we are always on the lookout for federal funding opportunities that can benefit our state. And so in this case, we were familiar with this grant opportunity, and we looked for communities that we thought would be good candidates, and we approached the tribe with this opportunity and helped write the application for this funding. Additionally, we helped with pre-development support, which is actually ongoing. This is a quite sophisticated solar project with a lot of technical components that the tribe is not necessarily familiar with. And so being kind of the go-between between the developer that has the technical savvy and the tribe that has the infrastructure that can benefit has been an important role for us to play. And finally, we are continuing to facilitate community engagement around this project. We've identified some benefits that we think have broad appeal, but we want to make sure that when this project is complete and these federal dollars are spent, the tribe is left with a project that reflects their goals and needs and values. And so community engagement is a significant part of the work that we do for this project and every project. This second project that I want to talk to you about is a little different. In this project, we're supporting local leaders. So whereas with the Miccosukee tribe, we can think about kind of having a direct hand in the federal grant application. On this project, we really are mindful that TNC can't be the kind of applicant for every grant, but we can be really useful in helping to support grants. So I want to talk a little bit about Florida's 8, what we call climate collaboratives. And these are groups of local governments that have come together to coordinate on climate policy and initiatives. And so this is another area that is really significant for pursuing federal funding opportunities. If multiple local governments can come together to apply for funds, those funds can be used more efficiently. They can impact more people. And, to some degree, we might see that local governments can provide a substitute for state level leadership on climate. So altogether, the 8 climate collaboratives that you see on this map here represent about 80% of Florida's population. And they have committed to all kinds of different climate initiatives. Some of them have to do with things like community planning and where are we going to put electric vehicle infrastructure for charging, or where can we put solar, but also how can we pursue some of these federal funding opportunities. And so TNC convenes these all 8 collaboratives on a monthly basis so that they can understand not only what's going on in their region, but we can also facilitate coordination and synergy across regions. And by doing so, we hope to ensure equity and inclusion, and also kind of efficiency and best practices in climate action across the whole state. So those are the 2 projects that I wanted to talk to you about that I think do a good job connecting those 3 pillars of climate action that we've talked about: this federal funding, tangible benefits, and key constituencies. And just to sum up here, I think that there's a lot to be said for this theory of change. We're applying it to a handful of other projects across our state. With these federal funding opportunities, the time to act is now. I think that It's fair to say that there is no best way. We work with a variety of partners, other nonprofits, local governments, industry leaders, individual volunteers, family foundations, and organizations like the Volo Foundation that are champions in their own right. And collaboration with this diversity of stakeholders is really important for ensuring that we have coordinated, equitable, enduring climate action. Your advocacy matters, and we appreciate you joining us for this conversation today. I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Amanda Thompson, who's going to talk a little bit about our work at the Centers for Conservation Initiatives.
Thanks, Morgan. I'm really excited to be joining you all today, and I'm so excited to talk about our TNC Center for Conservation Initiatives. So it was launched in January of 2022. So this relatively new site-based science and strategy platform for TNC and our partners is critical to investigate conservation questions, demonstrate strategy, and connect people to science. And so CCI, and that's the short term you'll hear me say for it, advances conservation through education and training, outreach and volunteerism, science and research, and land stewardship. And to check out our website, you can go to nature.org/CCI, or just scan with your phone the QR code here, and it should link you directly. So CCI, this is this broad overview of what's happening here in Florida for TNC. And so we have 4 initiatives that we're looking at, which is advancing natural resource management, developing future conservationists through lots of very cool programs, cultivating discovery on our sites and on partner sites, and then connecting people with nature. And so if you look to the right of the screen, you're going to see I have a map for all of our preserves. So we have 4 of them here in Florida. We have our Apalachicola Bluffs and Ravines, which is up in Bristol, Florida, in Northwest. We have 2 centrally located, Disney Wilderness Preserve and Tiger Creek Preserve. And then our most southern one is Blowing Rocks Preserve. Now, why are these so important? Well, these are our sites that do all of our great stewardship work, but these are the sites where all of these discoveries are kind of happening currently. And so these 4 sites welcome visitors to come check out, explore, learn about nature, find those connections. But CCI is working further to develop, and Volo has helped us do this year, is to create this kind of 3-legged stool approach. So we have our campus preserves on site. We have community engagement where we get out, talk to the community, engage with all sorts of organizations, and then we're building our online programming. And our online programming includes videos, webinars, lots of cool engagement stuff like that. And one way that we're actually engaging our online programs towards youth is by using something called Agents of Discovery. So Agents of Discovery is bringing augmented reality, so technology, into the field at our sites and connecting our young folks with their tech to nature. And so what's really exciting about this is that it's a digital engagement platform that allows children to bring their tech out with them and engage with challenges within each mission. And these challenges teach them about different strategies, climate, ecology, all sorts of great things like that. And so as they're walking around, their phones will ping with a challenge. They complete the challenge and they'll learn a little bit more about our sites and about how they can help with inspiring climate action as well. So I just wanted to point out to our side here, we have our lovely sandhill crane avatar. This avatar is just one of our first ones that you'll see. We're going to have 4 here in Florida. We'll have an eastern indigo snake, a land hermit crab, and a bald eagle. And these avatars will help our children and families come out and discover our sites. If you want to learn more about the Agents of Discovery platform, go ahead and click the QR code here or scan it with your phone. And then our campus preserves missions. So we have the 4 missions on sites. We have 2 missions at home. And so our missions at home are going to rotate seasonally based on new conservation themes or things that are happening. And then another mission is going to be highlighting Florida's conservation strategies. This is important because it allows us to have missions that are more inclusive, that are not restricted to physical barriers or languages. So some of these missions can be translated at all. And this is a great way for families and just like family units to gather together and explore the wild. Another way that we're moving forward, and this was big and innovative for this year, is we created online and on-site programs that were specifically developed for youth. And one program that we completed that was quite successful was called Science at Two Sites. It was a 3-part series that was designed for middle school age students to adult learners. And between the 3 programs that we had 214 participants and over 2,500 views on Facebook. So these videos were free and available for people to attend, and we look to doing something similar again in the future that would allow our middle schoolers, homeschoolers to join us and learn more about the science of our fieldwork and our conservation. And this is just an example of the flyer that we saw for that event. That kind of highlight all about Wildlife Corridor. If you're looking to see these, you can definitely jump on the TNC Florida Facebook page and you can find the videos there. We did Instagram takeover with our interns. 2 of them participated in a Gopher Tortoise video and a butterfly count video, and over 9,000 views. So these really innovative videos that our interns made got people really excited about the work that we're doing. We had an intern create Astronomy Nights program. This is something we hadn't done before. And what was nice about her developing this program is that she created kind of a standard of how to box a program that could be shared at all 4 of our preserves and just tweak the information based on the location. So that was a big, new, innovative thing that we moved forward with. And then we have youth engaging with our TNC sites through multiple different avenues, shoreline cleanups, scout events, conservation weekends at Tiger Creek, which are really cool, summer camp visits like the photo down below. You can see our intern Michaela holding up the fin to grab people's attention, and then guided learning experiences. And be sure to come check out whenever TNC is at a community event. We usually have lots of great things to engage the youth at our table. All right, I'm going to hand it back over to Morgan to wrap this up. Thanks, Morgan.
Thank you so much, Amanda. Before we part, we just wanted to leave you with some concluding thoughts. The first and foremost is that we would put it to you that Florida is ripe for meaningful climate action. When we talk about climate action or climate mitigation, I think it's important to remember that this concept can seem somewhat abstract, but conversations about vulnerability and resilience and economic opportunity are primary motivations for climate support in our state. And when we're talking to stakeholders, we think it's really useful to keep that in mind. I'd also remind you that decisions we make today carry forward in important ways, whether we choose to invest in that energy efficient air conditioner or not, or an electric vehicle or a hybrid over a traditional vehicle, is a decision that will have a lasting impact. And the same is said for federal funding opportunities and kind of garnering the support for climate investments and policy. The other thing that we'd like to reinforce is that strategic collaboration is key for climate action in Florida and beyond. TNC is proud to work with other nonprofits, local governments, industry, and individuals who all play an important role in advancing climate action in our state. That includes the young people that Amanda gets to work with every day. And we think that that trifecta of federal funding opportunities, tangible benefits for Floridians, and building those key constituencies or coalitions that will support enduring climate action is really important to our long-term success. Finally, we wanted to provide some suggestions about how to get involved. First and foremost would be contribute where and how you can. We understand that not everyone can go solar today, but we think it's great to support organizations that support climate action, including the Nature Conservancy, but also the Volo Foundation, to whom we are so grateful to get to participate in this Florida Climate Week alongside so many other leading organizations. Amanda has provided a QR code here at the bottom if you're interested in volunteering with our organization. We've also provided our contact information at the bottom of the slide if you'd like to get in touch. Thanks so much for joining us today, and we hope you enjoy Florida Climate Week.